Expected re-election campaign. Political allies say he'll be the first president to run a re-election campaign with staff represented by a union.
Biden likes to say he's the most pro-union president in U.S. history, and running a re-election campaign with a unionized staff would allow Biden to further demonstrate to his base just how deep his pro-labor convictions are. There have been presidential candidates with unionized campaigns. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Julian Castro had unionized campaign staffs in 2020, and Biden's campaign unionized after clinching the Democratic nomination that year. This time, Biden's campaign will unionize earlier in the process. Biden is expected to announce a re-election campaign as soon as next month. Donna Warder, Washington.
News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Jeremy House. 3 people have died and 8 others have lost their vision after using eye drops contaminated with a rare bacteria.
According to the CDC, 68 patients in 16 states have been infected with this rare strain of bacteria. Last month, Global Pharma Healthcare recalled its artificial tears lubricant eye drops that were distributed by EzraCare and Delsum Pharma and sold at drugstores including Walmart, Target, CVS, and Amazon. Global Pharma Healthcare is located in India, where the bacteria is commonly linked to outbreaks in hospitals. It's resistant to standard antibiotics. Tasha Stevens reporting.
Ford's electric vehicle business has lost $3 billion before taxes during the past 2 years and will lose a similar amount this year as the company invests heavily in the new technology. The figures came as Ford rolled out a new way of reporting its financial results. More on these stories at townhall.com.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
I promise you, whatever scum did this, not one man in this force will rest for 1 minute until he's behind bars. Now let's grab a bite to eat. Yeah, come on.
I feel the hot wind on my shoulder and the touch of a world that is older. I hit the switch and check the number. I leave it on and then I slumber. I hear the rhythm ringing through it. Flamenco guitar and cumbia music. I hear the talking of the DJ. The devil listen, what does he say? I'm on a Mexican radio. I'm on a Mexican radio.
Broadcasting live from high atop the J.P. White Building in downtown Roswell, New Mexico. It's Mornings with Mike Winters on 106.5 Roswell's Talk FM.
Is that what I sound like when I talk?
Now, here's your host, Mike Winters.
And good morning, one and all. Welcome to Mornings with Mike Winters. I am he. That will be me, Mike Winters. Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to it. Hope you're having a wonderful Thursday thus far.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't just you.
It's that's true. That is true. We all have the static power.
She triggered the static too there. Oh, you didn't hear when you grabbed the mic. You didn't hear the pop.
Yeah, that loud pop. It's funny too because it's even when you grab the plastic, it'll still do it. It does it to me all the time.
Yeah. I know. I heard it. You could hear the pop. So, happy Thursday.
I'm playing backseat board up over here.
I don't have the distance, so I'm glad he can do it.
I got the reach.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Got the long arm.
I'm T-Rexing it over here. But happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday.
We have a special show for you today.
On a very special episode of the Mike Winters Morning Show.
We need that music, the special music. You know, something. Where's the current affair people? Give me some music. But anyway, no, we do have a special episode today.
Yep.
For this hour and next hour, we're gonna have some special guests. For folks that have lived here in Roswell for a long time, or maybe their whole lives, will be very familiar with this incident.
Sure.
If you're new to the area, this might be new to you. But 9 years ago, it's hard to believe it's been
9 years
ago. Yeah.
Man, that's insane.
It happened back in 2014.
14, yeah.
Feels like yesterday.
We had a major tragedy here with the Berendo Middle School shooting, where we had a young man come in and start shooting to start off the day, and we had two students that were seriously injured in the event. Well, one of them will be joining us today, Nathaniel Tavares, who, believe it or not, is now a young man who is, I think he just graduated college, and he's doing really well, which we're glad for.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
But makes you feel kind of old when you see him. You're like, man, that was that long ago. But Nathaniel Tavares, one of the victims, he's going to be joining us for the next 2 hours, chatting with us. With him will be Brian Luck, superintendent for the Roswell Independent School District, and I believe at the time of the shooting was principal at Goddard High School. I think he was still. I think that was during his. I know he's principal right before, but I can remember when he took over as principal.
Right.
So I think he was though in 2014. So he'll join us, and then in the 8 o'clock hour, Sheriff Mike Harrington will join us as well.
Right.
And we'll talk a little bit more and get some of the law enforcement perspective. But we're going to talk a little bit, obviously talk with Nathaniel, talk about what he's been doing what he's up to. And
to grasp things from his perspective is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. And of course, he's, doing a lot, now, fighting against bullying, things like that. So he's taking his tragedy and turning it into a positive.
Sure,
that's
absolutely.
What's going on. So we're honored to have all these folks join us here this hour and next. So we'll talk with Nathaniel and Brian Luck and Sheriff Mike Harrington here this hour and next. And then in the 9 o'clock hour, we'll go to history. Historical Society. Amy McVeigh-Tejas will join us. She's going to come in and remind those last-minute high school seniors and college students to get their applications turned in for the March 31st deadline for their scholarship through the Historical Society. And we'll talk about some other things too, but that'll round out the show. But first 2 hours, we're going to be talking with Nathaniel and the sheriff and Brian Luck and talking about those events at Berendo and what has come from that event. So that's the morning. Yep. And then I'll crowbar a few dumb jokes because that's what I do.
Tonight on a very special episode of Mornings with Mike Winters. Why tonight?
Because, it's like the high atop. It's semantics. Because every time, if you ever listen to the morning show opening, it says broadcasting live from high atop.
High atop. I feel like we need to change that to broadcasting live from deep within the bowels of the J.P. White building. I feel like that's more apropos to the show.
That's cutting into
deep within the bowels.
That's cutting into Mark Levin territory. He's deep in the bowels of bunkers. I'm high atop.
High atop. You're riding high. Riding high.
But I'm not wrong, because that's what the antenna that provides the opportunity for y'all to listen to this.
I love the idea that we're up there on top of the building just broadcasting away.
Right next to that giant swamp cooler.
There was an iconic commercial growing up, and I brought this up before, but it's a Disney World commercial. At the end of the commercial, and they've done several of these, was Mickey Mouse standing on top of Epcot Center.
I remember those.
Waving.
Yeah.
Those commercials scared the crap out of me.
I don't like them either.
Because, first of all, how did he get up there?
They got a little
is there
thing.
a door? And, did he, climb?
There is.
Because I'm terrified of heights. I have vertigo like a son of a gun, so, when I
Have you ever been?
No.
That's a ride.
Oh,
that big
really?
ball is a ride.
Not outside, but inside.
Yeah, inside. Okay. You go inside of it and ride around.
Ride that you go.
Oh,
but
okay.
So there's ladders and scaffolding, so they just climb up and there's a hatch
but
up
it's just,
there.
when I see that commercial, I'm like, they didn't have drones when they shot that commercial, which means there was a helicopter rapidly rotating around Epcot Center while a dude in a mouse costume was waving. That's terrifying.
Although,
do you think he was harnessed?
It was Disney. They may have had drones.
Right. They could have had the technology.
Back then, they didn't have.
They could. It's Disney. That's
it's
what he's
Disney.
saying.
They could have everything.
It's NASA. They developed this technology.
It's magic.
They're like, y'all didn't have drones. We had them in the 60s.
They've got Imagineers. They can make stuff happen.
But that ball is huge. So really, standing up there, there's a lot of room. You're not going to...
Not that I would do it.
No. But
just
if you
terrifying.
think about it, someone just standing up there, there's
there's a whole ride in there. So, yeah.
That's just, I don't know. I have vertigo so bad, I get it for other people.
I know. Well, I remember that commercial, too, and I, too, did not. I used to get little, ooh.
Right?
Especially when they pan back and you see them from a distance. You're like, nah, I'm good. So, it is 12 or 13 minutes after 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead so we can get the hour started here.
Yes, indeed.
Get you up to date on the weather. If you love warm and windy.
And good morning. It is 21 minutes after 9 o'clock. And joining us in studio this
I'm
morning,
meteorologist Steve Hamilton with your Pecos Valley weather. Low pressure systems moving to our north. We won't be getting any rain from those, but we will have gusty wind again today, 35 to 40 miles per hour. Afternoon highs in the low to mid 70s, and we'll get some sun and some clouds. Overnight clearing up, but staying windy. Our lows in the upper 30s, and then gusty again on Friday. Sunny, and we're in the mid 60s. For the weekend, we're looking fair but cooler. That's your latest forecast. I'm meteorologist Steve Hamilton.
Thank you, Steve. Currently 48 degrees here in Roswell. Humidity is at 50%. Winds currently out of the northeast at 5 miles per hour. We do have a fire weather watch that's actually going to be, that's for tomorrow. My apologies, for the 24th. We'll get into that in a second. For today, mostly cloudy with a high of 73. Winds will be out of the northwest, 10 to 20. This morning, 20 to 30, gusting as high as 40 miles per hour later this afternoon. Tonight, we're looking at clear skies with an overnight low of 39 degrees. Winds will remain blowing out of the west, 20 to 30, gusting as high as 40 miles per hour, dropping down 10 to 20 after midnight tonight. For your Friday, we do have the fire weather watch. That's going to kick in at 10 a.m. tomorrow, remaining in effect through 9 p.m. With that, we expect sunny skies. Highs a little cooler, 66 tomorrow. Winds will remain up out of the west, though, 10 to 20 in the morning, 20 to 30 in the afternoon, gusting as high as 40 miles per hour. Friday night, mostly clear with an overnight low of 37. Winds will be up out of the west, 25 to 30, gusting as high as 40 miles per hour, dropping down 15 to 20 after midnight Friday night. Then for the weekend, sunny on Saturday, high of 65. West winds are around 15 miles per hour. That sounds quite nice. And then Sunday, sunny skies, highs right around 67, and then we'll be back up in the upper 60s, low 70s Monday and Tuesday of next week. All right, it is 15 minutes after 7 o'clock. We're going to take about a 2.5-minute commercial break, and then we will talk with Nathaniel Tavares and Brian Luck here on the other side. Don't go away. You're listening to Mornings with Mike Winters.
This country can sure be windy in the springtime, and we all know the best thing about wind is when it stops. Well, your friends at Roswell Ford can't do anything about the wind, but we can sure help you find the right car or truck. Roswell Ford has the biggest selection of nice pre-owned vehicles in southeastern New Mexico. Each one carefully inspected and backed with a 3-day money-back guarantee. We also have brand new Fords arriving almost every day, so you'll want to check with us frequently to be sure you don't miss something. And when
teens, it's time to put your sleep disorders to bed. Request an appointment online at artesiageneral.com/sleep.
Here's a Mornings with Mike Winters fun fact. Due to extreme pressure and weather conditions, it literally rains diamonds on Neptune and Uranus. Stop snickering because I said Uranus. Here's Mike Winters.
And good morning. It is 18 minutes after 7 o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning, Brian Luck is with us. He's superintendent for the Roswell Independent School District. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
And also joining us here in studio, Nathaniel Tavares. Many folks remember victim of the Berendo school shooting here, which I can't believe was 9 years ago. That seems so long. It seems like it was just yesterday, but it was that long ago. Who's now a young man and a young I say young man and adult now. Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
Yes, good morning. Great. How are you?
Doing great. First off, before we start anything else, it's really awesome to have you here today. I'm just glad to see you, glad that you're here, and glad to see that you're doing well. You know, in spite of, you seem to be doing great with your life. So first, awesome. So awesome to hear that. So glad to see that you're doing well and you're here smiling with us this morning. We appreciate it. We're so glad to have that. So thank you. For folks that don't know, we probably, because I imagine if you've lived here your most of your life or a hunk of your life, you're very familiar with the Berendo school shootings, which the middle school, which took place 9 years ago, and Nathaniel was one of the victims of that, where we had himself and another student get seriously injured. Fortunately, we didn't lose anybody that day, but we were very fortunate there. But and since then, Nathaniel, now this is where because I know some people have been following you pretty closely in the last 9 years here, but for a lot of us, it's like, man, I remember that. How's he doing today? So let's start there. What are you doing today? What's Nathaniel Tavares doing in 2023? Let's talk a little bit about that first.
For an overview, quite a lot. A lot of good things. So as far as like what I do outside of school, I am a leadership coach for student organizations. So travel all across the United States, go to tons of student leadership conferences, and each year we have a state officer team that's elected.
Okay.
So I get to coach them throughout their terms, so that's really cool.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then so with that, I ended up starting my own project with a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. And so this project actually goes into sharing my story and going into mental health and anti-bullying initiatives that we.
So really, the root of what happened back in 2014 here is going back and exposing and preventing the scenario there from that ever happening in a school again here and doing that. So exposing and educating, I'm thinking, a lot of people about it.
Exactly, absolutely.
Very cool. I'm just curious, you're what, about 21 now?
21, yeah.
21, exactly. Man, it's hard to believe it's... you're making me feel old, which is a good thing. I'm glad you see it, but I'm like, man, I'm thinking, man, it was like 11, 12 when all this was going down. So it's crazy. So what's your, because you went on to, I think I heard you were going to Lubbock Christian after you graduated. What's been school and all that? Since graduation and all that?
Yeah. So whenever I first graduated high school, that next fall I started up at Lubbock Christian.
Okay.
Originally I was going the pre-med track.
Okay. Because I remember it was talking a little bit. I think in the article you talked a little bit about that, and you and it kind of pivoted a little bit as you went through school, and your interest changed a little bit, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Very good.
So, throughout that first year or two of college, I was still studying pre-med biochem.
Okay.
And then everything I was doing outside of school was all related back to business.
Okay.
And so 2.5 years in, I ended up transferring over to Texas Tech. And now I'm double majoring in business communication and business administration.
Nice. Well, good news is the move wasn't that far, because LCU to Tech is, get a couple buddies in a pickup and you're good to go.
Exactly.
Very cool. That's awesome. So how close are you now to finishing up at Tech here?
So I'm about a year out from finishing up my business administration degree.
Okay.
And then I start up, I believe, next semester with professional communications.
Very cool. So is your ultimate goal to continue on with your organization here, and or do you have bigger plans?
Really continuing to build up this organization.
Okay.
I think it'll be really beneficial, especially along the way, making different connections and being able to build this into something even better.
Sure. So I'm curious because when like now that you've lived, now obviously that date changed your life back in 2014. What's it like been since then for you? Going through the recovery and after all that, and you're kind of, quote unquote, living your normal life again. What was? Do people, like, when people meet you and things, were they familiar with your story? Was it did you have to explain your story everywhere you go? What was life like that after that period where you, quote unquote, been through recovery and you're kind of trying to live your normal life again? Is it constantly bringing you back to that day, or do you get to live your life like a normal person?
Well,
I know it's a lot to take in that question, but
3 or so years ago, I was able to transition to some better contact lenses and glasses.
Okay.
And so before that, that's when a lot of those questions would come up because I had really big
because you had more
lenses.
Physical limitations, and the glasses and stuff weren't exactly helping you blend in.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so from that point, people would ask what's your vision like, being that you have to see through the big glasses, or sometimes with the big scar on my head, they'll ask, like, if you don't mind me asking, what is that from? And then we'll get into the story. So what the good thing about it is there's always something good that comes out of it. Like it turns into a really good conversation.
Sure. So you use it as an opportunity to educate. You're kind of like, hey, thanks for asking. You know, and you got the shirt like, ask me about my scar kind of thing.
Yes.
All right, and they tell you. So it's like something that could be bothersome to you if you let it. You've turned it into something that it turns it into a positive, and hopefully someone walks away with a different perspective after talking to you a little bit. So,
right.
Very cool. So what's it been like for you? I mean, mentally, going through, because I imagine you went through this whole. I can only imagine, because I've never been put in that situation. What it's like for you to process and to go through there. I can only imagine it. My imagination is it's arguably one of the hardest things a person can go through in their life. But the reality is, you went through it here. What's some of the things you take from this from the other side? What you always hear the saying, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Well, what made you stronger from this one? Because clearly there's a bunch here, but your opinion, what is it that you think's making you stronger from this?
Really from the start, because I was medically sedated in the hospital for about 2 weeks after the incident happened. And so as soon as I woke up from that, that's when my faith really kicked in. And that's what's helped me to keep like that positive mindset throughout then until now.
Sure. Family probably helped. I'm sure your family was there, surrounding you with love and helping you go through that. And that it's sure a lot easier when you got your family there supporting you and everything else too. So that, I imagine that was a big part of it too. So.
Yeah, great support systems with my family, with the schools, both at Berindo and at Goddard. So yeah, I mean that was a big part for me.
싶What do you still keep friends with some of the kids from that? I know life gets on, and your middle school friends, you separate and stuff, but obviously a lot of went through a unique situation here. Did that strengthen some friendships? There's just some kids that were, fellow students at the time that are now good friends that because of this scenario here. Did you establish some of those friendships?
Yes, so there are a few friends still to this day that were there when it happened. Still really good friends to this day. And life goes on. Everybody gets busy, but no matter how long it's been since we spoke last, we can connect and instantly like
you pick up right where you left off. That's
right,
cool.
Exactly.
And you know what? You're probably going to find, just from my own personal wisdom, that will not change your whole life. You're going to 20 years from now, when you're in your 40s, another 20 when you're in your 60s, you're going to meet up with these folks, and it's going to be exactly the same way. And you're all going to look uglier and older and less hair and all that. Brad's like, speak for yourself. I'm always handsome. But things will start going south, but that attitude and everything will still be there. It's getting back, and I know I'm kind of jumping all around, but for folks that don't realize, because of the injury suffered from that day, these are things you're still dealing with. I mean, aside from the blindness and everything else, you are filled with lead from the shotgun pellets, and do you still have to get tested every 6 months for lead poisoning and all that kind of stuff? Is that still something you're dealing with, or are they kind of passed on, or technology's allowed that to change?
Thankfully, as the years go on, my lead levels continue to decrease.
That's a good thing.
Because of the fact that they're building like some scar tissue around them.
Okay. So they're kind of getting encased or something around the... Okay.
Yeah, and so I have really like a blood draw once a year now.
Okay.
Still over 1,000 pellets in my body, but thankfully they've pretty much encapsulated themselves to where it doesn't...
Now, are most of them in your head? Is that why they can't get them out, because they're in your head, or are they just too deep in?
Too deep in, and it ranges all the way from the top of my head down to my waist.
Okay, so it is a little farther spread than just your head area. Okay,
right.
I was just kind of curious. I mean, I was because that's a unique thing, and it does. I mean, do you still do you feel it? Can you touch your? I mean, is it like that, or is it?
So some of the ones that are more like surface level, I have one right here in my neck that you can like
Kinda
feel because
feel?
it's closer to the surface. Yeah, and various places in my body, like I'll find some that you can feel.
Sure.
But yeah, most of them are so deep into like the tissues and stuff that.
Do you deal with pain and stuff still? Do you occasionally have to wake up and deal with pain or dealing with any of those kind of side effects?
The only like lasting pain was actually from a spinal tap that I had in Dallas.
Okay.
And so anytime it gets cold outside, my back starts to ache. But that's really the only lasting pain,
Wow.
thankfully.
How long was your recovery from, like how much time were you in a hospital? I mean, obviously you know they did the initial treatment, then they let you go home, and then you probably went through a lot of rehab and things. But that initial recovery, how long was that time period?
From the time that it happened to about 2 weeks after, that's when I was medically sedated there at UMC in Lubbock. And then whenever I woke up, we spent about another week and a half or so there in Lubbock for some additional recovery time. And then I was actually transported over to Dallas by ambulance for physical rehabilitation. And so we spent about a week and a half there as well. So total, it was about a month and a week, give or take, from January 14th up to my return here in Roswell, which was February 21st.
Okay, wow. That's amazing. Well, and you're just a 11, 12-year-old kid. What's your mind? I mean, how much do you remember, first off? I mean, what were you, like the parts you remember, do you remember it in a scary way, or do you remember it in a way that was a little different? When you got family around you, maybe that was a comfort to you. I'm just kind of curious what your brain was going through during this, the parts that you were, I mean, obviously probably in and out of consciousness and, all that stuff, but I'm just curious, what was your mindset through all this?
So during that recovery time, it was more so a sense of peace.
Okay.
I felt really relaxed, being able to sit back and literally have no worry in a sense. Mainly because of the care that I received at the hospital with all of my family being around.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew that I was in a safe place and that there was really nothing to worry about. Like
Okay.
I knew I was in good hands.
Good deal. So it was just the fact that, hey, I'm okay now. That was, give you a say. And I would argue that the fact that this happened to you as 11 or 12-year-old could be a blessing in disguise. And what I mean by that is youth have the ability to overcome and adapt and take a scenario and turn it. And I think the fact that it happened to you at a young age gives you a bit of an opportunity to process it a little different. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I think mentally you might be able to recover from it better because it happened to you as a young man that, there's a lot of time for that brain to heal and recoup and to process it a little differently. And kids' brains are just much more resilient than old brains. They just, you know what I mean? And that's, so I think, not that you ever want this to happen, but the fact that it happened at a young age could be, this is what it's a blessing and not a curse necessarily. No one wants to get shot, but
right.
But what you're doing with this is taking lemons here and making lemonade. Literally, you're taking what a tragedy and doing the phoenix from the ashes of this tragedy. You're coming and going to make it a better thing, and that's awesome. I'm so glad that you've healed and you're in a good place enough to where now you can take your message and hopefully maybe save someone else's life or raise the awareness of problems, bullying and a lot of the issues that this tragedy spoke from. So we're so happy that and the fact that this has become your passion. I mean, like you were talking earlier, in high school you were kind of thinking, being, doctor business, things like that. But life put you here, and I don't know if you're a Christian. I don't know your faith thing, but I am, and I got to say, God had some ideas for you, bud.
Definitely. Agreed.
I got a feeling, that it is not a coincidence that you're sitting in front of me today and you're doing what you're doing for the. I think God had a hand in it. That's just me personally, but anyway.
Absolutely. I agree.
How were your parents through this? I mean, we talk about you, but what did your parents struggle with? I mean, that's got to be a fact, aside from the fact of actually going through it, but no parent wants to be worrying about their child in a hospital and think, that's probably the worst nightmare for any parent. How did your parents come through this?
It was really hard for them at first.
Yeah.
Of course, especially the day that happens, because that's one call no parent ever wants to receive is, at this school, your child was just shot. And so, receiving that news, I mean, they were going wild, as any parent would. And so, thankfully, whenever we got to Lubbock, all of my family was already there by the time I was airlifted over. And, came out of the operating room after spending about 12 hours in the OR. And my whole body was swollen, staples, stitches, tubes, everything everywhere. And so that was quite a shock to them because it didn't look like me. I was a whole different person by the look of it.
I would imagine, yeah.
And so during that time of that 2-week sedation I was talking about, they were questioning, even the medical professionals were questioning whether or not I was going to wake up. And so that was a really hard time for my parents.
I would imagine.
Entire family. Yeah.
A lot of touch and go at that moment. Yeah.
Exactly. And so whenever I woke up, the doctors are saying things like he may not be able to eat again, talk, walk, things like that.
So they were kind of preparing your parents for the worst here.
Right.
Gotcha.
But that after that first day that I woke up, each day that went, I proved something wrong as far as one of their, professional opinions.
So did you throw some food in your mouth the first time and everyone cheered and you're like, all right.
yeah, exactly.
Calm down. It's just a grape.
right. Exactly.
That's awesome. I mean, it's awesome that part is to get to see, but for your parents, I imagine that's but I imagine it probably strengthened a relationship at the end of the day. You're sure what you have, your parents, and I'm sure it was a huge reminder to them too, because sometimes we you take things for granted sometimes in life until you almost lose it sometimes, and then you realize. And I imagine your parents probably went through a little bit of that at that moment there too.
Yeah.
Just a hunch. Well, so how are they doing today? Are they are they able to cope with it today and kind of, Nathaniel's doing his thing, he's living his life, and they're just proud parents again, everything? Are they doing better now from all that?
The way you explained it was literally exactly how they are.
Good.
Just proud of what I've been able to do, the places I've been able to go, and the places that we will be going here soon.
Cool. Well, it's on you, the rest of them. Making them happy now. Now it's on you. But it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job with it. So, I do, and maybe we'll do that a little bit next hour here, is talk a little bit kind of about your organization, give us kind of the nuts and bolts of it and how people can get involved here. But it kind of, is a lot of it doing outreach now with this, is going and visiting schools and visiting various places and telling your story, and is that kind of the big part of it now, is just getting the word out about your story and telling people, there's options here, there's other ways to deal with some of the things that we're dealing with in society right now?
Yeah, well, last year is when I really started to put together a lot of the back end stuff as far as how I was going to outreach to different schools. Really across the states is the big goal.
Yeah.
But specifically here within New Mexico, that's where I structured the back end of a lot of things a little differently, being that this is where it all happened. And so, yeah, I developed a lot of what my message already was into something that was a little more structured.
Gotcha.
That way, whenever it came to outreach, I was able to present what exactly I could offer. Such things as bringing awareness to these particular type of challenges that a lot of the youth face.
Sure. Well, I mean, in essence, what you're creating is a business. I mean, it's a not-for-profit, but the model's the same, and so I imagine whatever business acumen you're learning in college and you've learned in college, that's going to be in high school. Mr. Luck over here had a role in some of that. But And so a lot of that's going to translate to that nonprofit here in this organization. So, I imagine keep paying attention to those business classes because it'll probably help you pretty well in some of this stuff. So, very cool. So, I mean, is this the goal at this point, or do you have other dreams and aspirations, or is everything pointed towards this organization getting it going, or do you want to? I mean, imagine your whole life isn't about this. I mean, there's got to be, before this all happened, you were things you were into and enjoying in life, or do you get to do that kind of stuff still?
Yeah, the other thing that I focus on is that student leadership development.
Okay.
So like my role as a keynote speaker and a workshop host at the leadership conferences.
Okay.
That's my other focus. So everything collectively comes back to students.
Gotcha. So it's all little pieces in the big puzzle here.
Exactly.
Basically. Gotcha.
Right.
So obviously, because of your status here now, a lot of public speaking, is that something you're always into, or is that a skill you've developed over the more recent years?
Definitely a skill that I developed. Because if you'd ask me about, say, 8 years ago, I was terrified to even get up in front of a class to give a presentation.
Well, and I would also argue that that's normal considering what you went through. Because we talk about the bullet, the pellets, we talk about the damage, but all of that is physical. We haven't even gotten into PTSD, and I would imagine you mentally went through a lot to get to before you got to where you're here today. I imagine you had a lot of struggles personally, maybe with family, with other things. To you know what I'm saying? I imagine you probably had windows where things happened normal in life that triggered bringing your brain right back to that moment and things like that. I imagine that we kind of talk about the physical healing, but I imagine that was probably just as much going on, not only for you, but for your parents and the rest of your family too, because they suffered in that side just as much as you did. When we talk about like soldiers and when they go off to war, and the family are just as much, victims as much as the GI going to do the duty here. So, do you mind talk a little bit about that side? How was that? Was it a rough road to recovery there, or did it go pretty smooth?
As far as the recovery phase, say about the couple years after it happened, it went really smooth. I was able to take a step back, especially that first year, take a step back from school, really focus on recovering well, both physically and mentally. And that's what helped me to return to Berendo actually for my 8th grade year.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, aside from that, the only thing that really brought back any kind of queasy feeling was the, we'd have threats at the schools.
Like the drills or someone calls in a bomb threat or something like that.
Right. And that's like all across the United States.
Sure.
And
they were doing that when I was a kid, and they were doing it long before that. So, yeah.
And sadly, it's like something that's become normalized. For instance, somebody will say, "Oh, there was a school shooting in this town, this school," and it's like, "Oh, wow!" And
that's
then
too bad.
Then
they move on about their day. Yeah, you're right. It's almost part of the lexicon, which is scary, sad, and that almost it. You talk about that because we talk about the Berendo Middle School shooting, and obviously that was the biggest thing to happen in this area in a long time.
Right.
And it still is, even 9 years later. But look how many of these have happened since in that and let's face it, 9 years ago when it did happen, it stood out, but it wasn't like surprising either. You know what I mean? Like it was still enough in the lexicon even 9 years ago where ever since I guess Columbine, it's kind of been really that, just part of our life here, and it's that's the one part that's where I think I really have so much respect for you and your family, is because that's the part. It's like, because at the end of the day, that's the the shooting happens, the things happen, that day happens. If you survive it, that's where the real work turns out, whether this is going to be an event that destroys us or the event that makes us a better humans and better people. And we're going in the right direction, it sounds like, with this one with you. But but people don't realize that struggle in between that your whole world is rocked, I would imagine. You're as a 11, 12-year-old kid, you look through that world in that lens, and that lens just got ripped from you that day. I don't care what you say, you probably didn't look at life the same ever after that, as a kid. You had to be an adult that moment that happened. And it's so sorry for you for that, but I'm so happy that you have taken that ball and run with it and said, you know what, despite the deck of cards I got dealt here, I'm going to still go for the pot here. And I love that. And it's so glad that you're able to do that here. And I can tell that you and your family and everybody are taking this event and saying, we're going to not die by it, we're going to live by it, and we're going to turn it into a good thing and a positive thing. So I'm so glad I'm excited to kind of follow your progress and see more things over the years here. And next thing you know, we're hearing about Nathaniel's organization here, or Nathaniel's doing something over here, or something like that. I'd look forward to those days. So, is your plan to stay in this area, or are you going to spread the wings and go all over the place here? Are you going to? Because I'm assuming mom and dad and everybody, family's still hanging in this area, so you're going to have to come in and visit. They're not going to let you not come by. But is your life aspirations to stay in this area? Do you want to be in Texas or wherever? Where's the world taking you?
I may end up keeping Texas as more of a long-term type of home.
Okay.
But who knows? I mean, I go so many places now. It's good to be able to see the rest of, I should say, the United States. And so who knows? Maybe I'll end up in another state.
Although, restaurant speaking, I'm pretty sure every restaurant known to human beings are in Lubbock, Texas. So you might, you can catch the whole world right there. I mean, they even got a Joe's Crab Shack in a landlocked state. What are we doing here? Anyway. But so how close are you to graduating from Tech?
About a year and a half.
So about a year and a half here. So probably like next summer,
right
here we'll be back putting on the cap and gown and doing all that, and that's so cool. I imagine you're excited for that.
Absolutely, yeah. After the probably 3, maybe 4 major changes, I finally found where I meant to be educationally.
Well, and that's this time. That's what you're supposed to do. That's normal college kid stuff you're doing, and that's what's awesome about it. You're here, just a typical 20-some-year-old kid doing your thing here, and that's just as cool as the other stuff here too. So for folks that are listening right now, because we're gonna have to pause here and take a break and all that, but kind of as a setup point, give for folks that are interested in learning more about your organization, things like that. Do you have some websites or some places where people can do some reading and some research here to kind of get them going?
Yes, so the website that I have right now, currently being reconstructed to better set a showcase for my message, but it's nathanieltavares.com.
Okay, good deal. So easy, simple. Just you got to learn how to spell Nathaniel Tavares, but once you figure that out, you go right there and check it out, and then come and see it. And then obviously this is kind of grassroots, getting off the ground. We're in the entry level here, so if people are liking what you're doing and want to get involved, reach out to Nathaniel, and because I'm sure you can always use more volunteers, more people to that share your vision to get involved and help spread the word here a little bit. So
absolutely,
good deal. Well, you can stick around for a little bit, right? You guys are going to hang out for a little bit. So let's do this. It's 7:48. We're going to pause for some news. We'll also do Chaves County Sports Update, a couple commercials to pay for my lunch, and then we'll come back on the other side here with Nathaniel and Brian Luck. Brian, this has been the quietest you've been. I think I just said like six words the whole time here.
Might be the greatest interview.
We're going to ruin it up next. We'll be back. Don't go away. You're listening to Mornings with Mike Winters.
Now for a Pecos Valley news update, I'm Jared Sorello. The City of Roswell's Keep Roswell Beautiful program will help local residents celebrate Arbor Day by again handing out tree and shrub seedlings for citizens